Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, happy Thanksgiving Cactus to you. Welcome everyone inside the plant room here where the Christmas, there I said it again. It's been about 6 years, 7, 8 years working with this Thanksgiving cactus, and I still to this day will make that mistake and call it a Christmas cactus. This is my Thanksgiving cactus, and as you can see, it's pretty much reached full bloom. Now it bloomed a little earlier than I was hoping to this year, a little less bloomage on top. Thanksgiving is in only 2 days from when I'm recording this, and it held on pretty good. Although we're having our dinner on Friday this year, like we typically do, and so that's 3 days away, and I'm afraid half of these flowers will be falling off by that time. But I thought I'd share it with all of you. So here is the Thanksgiving cactus. Now, of all the videos I've made, I've said this 100 times before, I think, the videos about this tree, this plant, has received the most views. I think it's 50-something thousand for this cactus on the one episode, and then the other one's 24, 26,000. I don't remember what they are, but the most views, the top 2 videos of all the things I've done in bonsai, and this is the one that people flock for. But of course, I'm getting all the plant people as well as bonsai people. And there you have it. So we have a nice woody trunk on this guy. I want it to get a little bit taller, but then when the flowers bloom, we get this kind of weeping willow. And yeah, we've got about a good dozen or so that are just kind of wilting and probably ready to fall right off. But you can take a cutting from this tree, stick it into some dirt, or this plant, put it in some dirt, and about 8 years later you can have this, because this started from a cutting from my wife's plant. Here's a picture of that shot for you. I think it was 2018. So that puts us at 6 years ago. If it was 2006, no, it was 18. So I think it's only 6 years ago. It's one of my favorite trees to show people when I'm introducing them to bonsai, to talk about how almost anything can become a bonsai. We look for that gnarly woody barks down at the bottom there, trunk that's woody in nature. And this one's starting to peel. It's getting bigger and thicker. And then you've got this green foliage that's not really leaves. It's just this continuation of the plant. But oh my gosh, is it fun. And so there we have a little nod to Thanksgiving cactus. An update, if you will. Oh, look, we just lost a pretty bud right there. So yeah, this is getting a little bit weak, and we're starting to lose some things. But there we have it. So today's show has nothing to do with the Thanksgiving cactus. I'm just recording this 2 days before the big holiday. I wanted to share an update with you because I've had a lot of people ask about updates about trees. And so I wanted to show this as an update before it lost all its flowers. So I will have some updates soon. Some people have asked about them. I'll get to those in a couple of episodes. But this episode, we're going back on the road. Yeah, it is the Mississippi East of road trip, my bonsai extravaganza. I was all over the East looking at bonsai trees, meeting some great people. And if you haven't caught all the videos, go check the playlist for the road trip, the bonsai road trip east of the Mississippi. And on this particular episode, I think we're on day 9. And is it day 9 or is it day 10 already? I'm losing track. I have to pay more attention. It's the last day of bonsai activity because we're in Michigan. So I left the bonsai zone, Nigel and the crew, and I went to south and east to Michigan. So our first stop in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area was the Matthaei Botanical Gardens and Bonsai Collection. And I got to talk to an amazing bonsai practitioner and an amazing man, Mr. Jack Sustic. Now, Jack was so gracious with his time, and we got to talk about some of these amazing trees. And this is one of those episodes where you have to actually go to this place to see some of these trees up close and personal because the camera does not do justice. But my big thanks to Aaron, who shot the video for me. So it was the only time on location where someone shot for me. Aaron took care of the duties there. And so he was all over the place getting some really cool perspective shots from behind the trees, all around the trees, and a lot of great knowledge from Jack Sustic. So it was a great time there. As all my interviews were, I learned a ton, and it was just so nice to be with people who just gave of their time so freely. Now, a bit of sad news. Since I was there, and really only a week or two ago, I found out from another Michigan friend of mine that Jack's father had passed away. So my condolences to Jack and his family. And we are with you in the bonsai hobbyist world, with you, YouTube, and all of that. Jack, if you're watching, my condolences and my sympathies for your loss, and I hope you and your family are able to remember all of the good times and celebrate his life. And we got bonsai to continue celebrating our journey, so let's take a peek at that. Jack Sustic, over in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area, Matthaei Botanical Garden in the bonsai collection. Oh my gosh, second to none. Go check it. Thanks again to Aaron, and we are almost done with the road trip. Enjoy this episode, everybody. I wanted to ask you real quick before I forget, how are you tied into this, and how did you, are you a volunteer? Are you co-curating? What are you doing here?
I was a volunteer. I was a member of the Ann Arbor Bonsai Society.
Okay.
And with the large donation that happened last year, they came up with a position for apprentice technician, and I applied for that.
And here you are. So how long ago was that?
Last September.
Okay. So this is your first year of doing that?
First year here.
And how long will this?
This will last for another year.
Okay.
I'll be off for a couple months in the wintertime, but then I pick up in February, and I end up out in November.
Okay. You're the master here. You're teaching, showing him the ropes. How hard is it to get someone to get acclimated to what you as a curator is trying to keep with these trees? And it must be kind of challenging at first, I would imagine.
It can be if you have a person that has no bonsai background or experience, but fortunately Mike does.
Yeah.
And so, you know, baptism by fire, but you know, he jumped right in and
jumping into the shallow end with a dive.
Right,
there you go. You got to learn by doing. I think that's
right,
my favorite way to learn. Mm-hmm. And when I was walking around Bill's backyard, Velvanis, just 36 hours ago, he had a scissors in his hand, and sometimes we'd stop talking, he'd go right to the tree and start working again. It's just to watch people do their thing is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
You were at the DC collection for, you were there for 20 years, but the curator for about 15?
Curator for 13.
13 years?
Yes,
How'd you get that position?
Being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Right? So I just graduated college, and I got a job in South Carolina.
Okay.
At a zoo and botanic garden.
Yeah.
And greenhouse nursery manager, and I thought my career was going to be propagating and growing plants for the botanic garden.
Okay.
And I saw an ad in a trade magazine for an internship in DC. And so I applied for that and got it.
Just like he did. And
right.
Then, and then boom.
And it was a 6-month gig. And so I came back to South Carolina, and about 2 or 3 months later I got a call that there was a position available, like Mike, right? Not to exceed 3 years, I think.
Okay.
And, you know, I rolled the dice, talked with my wife. Fortunately, she was supportive. I rolled the dice. We sold our house and moved to DC for a 3-year gig. Yeah. And I was there about a year, and the assistant curator moved on. And I got that.
That's fantastic.
And then I was assistant curator to Warren Hill, who just recently passed away. But I think maybe 2 years after that, Warren retired. And I applied for it and got it.
So, gosh, things just fell right into place.
The stars were just aligned.
Yeah, they were aligned
right
great.
At the time.
Now, you didn't know any bonsai in the beginning then?
I mean, my first bonsai I got in 1988. So
okay.
I had a bonsai background, but nothing like the background I gained after
I was going to say, you started as a hobbyist like all of us do, but boy, you jumped and went really, really fast.
Yeah. This is an azalea. It's about 80 years old, but it's a root over rock. And just an amazing, it's a variety called Cajo.
Okay.
And it's hard to explain. You have to really see it to believe it. That stone and the tree growing over the rock.
It.
And the
around it.
The nabari, the root system that is on this. you know, that's just shows you right there. It's an old tree. It's been on there a long time.
Long time. What a unique rock planting. He's got that tunnel, cave-ish type thing that goes right through.
Yep.
And the tree's growing right around the rock on both sides there, or just the front? It goes around the back as well? Oh, it sure does. Oh, my word. Oh, you're on a spin table on here. That's fantastic. Wow.
There's some debate that this side is a better side.
Better front?
For the rock. But,
Well, that's what rectangle pots are for, right?
Yeah,
You
right.
don't like the other front for a while? Spin
just
it
turn
around.
it around.
Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. It's cool to see a root over a rock like that from an amazing. Is it now that one blooms? You're letting those bloom pretty much most seasons for
Pretty
the
much.
for the beauty.
I would say we have approximately 36 azaleas right around there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, the 80-90% of them we let bloom. If they're healthy and they're vigorous and they aren't showing any signs of stress, we let them bloom.
Yeah.
If there's any indication, then maybe we don't let them bloom that year.
So is it pretty true for the young folks and the hobbyists who have new trees that want to push out a lot of growth? Maybe only let them bloom every third year to help them with their
sure.
development?
I mean, if you don't let them bloom, you know, they're going to push vegetative growth.
Yeah.
And so if you want growth, then
Yeah.
don't let
so
them
that's
bloom.
still considered a practice to do. And then, of course,
Yeah.
now these are really refined trees. Let them,
Yeah,
let them
they're-
bloom for all their glory and then cut them off, and there you go.
They've had this shape that you see for many years.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to change
You're not
the
trying to
shape.
change it.
As the curator, that's
Yeah.
not my job to
So that
to
brings up a
change it.
great question, though. I've talked to a lot of people on this trip. This is living art. Mm-hmm. And it does change.
It does.
A storm goes
They
through.
do
What if
change.
hail hit these
Yeah.
trees?
Then, well,
I
then
was-
you're forced to make a change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how, as a curator, are you trying to keep the most shapes of the tree from the donator, from the artist, from the person who it came from, if it's now yours in your collection? Are you trying to keep that as true to form as possible until those things happen? Or do you have kind of free will to kind of make a few nips and tucks as you now think is fit? How do you balance that?
Yeah, you know, I think it's up to the philosophy of the collection,
Okay.
of the institution and
Sure.
the curator.
Yeah.
But that's
All
always
of
been
those
my
in-
feeling.
All
that-
those in this place, you guys all together are making those decisions.
Well, my feeling is that we try to maintain the shape
Yeah.
that they came in.
Yeah. Keep the integrity of the tree.
Right. So
Yeah.
when I was in DC, I always said that, you know, like the National Portrait Gallery,
Yeah.
say they got a Picasso in.
Yeah.
It's not up to the curator to say, you know, I don't like the color that he
Yeah.
painted that
Yeah,
chair.
yeah, maybe we
We're
should-
going to change that, right?
Yeah. That's true. That makes so much sense.
And that's how I generally feel about
Yeah.
being a curator, about being the steward of the trees.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't. It's not really your job to change them.
Yeah.
It's your job to, because these are, not only do they represent bonsai and this style, but they also represent the artist that created it.
Absolutely. This-
Right?
again, it's
and
living,
every artist
it's living
has
art.
a different,
It's art, yeah.
right, different taste, you know.
Right.
So-
Someone that might not like a Picasso and they might love a Rembrandt.
That's
Someone-
right.
Someone just might walk by this tree.
and it might be, and the next person, it's the opposite.
Exactly.
Right.
And how do we control it? And we've joked about this in Bonsai all the time. If you're part of a club, you've had anybody, we have the State Fair show every year, and we have Jonas Dupuis coming to judge our trees.
Yep.
And if some of the same trees are in this show that were last year, and last year we had Peter T., you're going to get 9 professionals and then you there as well, and you're all going to have a slightly different slant
Yep,
on that tree.
exactly.
How can you get around that? You,
Yep,
you
yep.
can't.
This is another pretty significant
Look at the
azalea.
base of that one.
Yeah, that's huge.
Oh my
And it just
word.
tells you it's very old. It's
Yeah.
approximately 100 years old.
Now everybody, that's the first thing everybody asks at a State Fair show. And
How old
I
is
notice
it?
you don't have how old is it on here. So are there staff around that people can ask, or I mean, I'm with you now, so you say it's about 100 years old. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's the reason that some of these don't have them is because they're temporary labels.
Okay,
And so when the permanent labels come, they'll have an age on
you
them.
can have an age.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Goldstein donated his collection to you, and that's where a good chunk of your trees came from.
Major, yes.
Major.
We had the collection really started in the mid 70s. Professor here at the university passed away and he did bonsai. There was never a place to display them. They were all, and
Right.
like, who's going to take care of them, right?
Right.
And so there's a spot in the grow out, in the greenhouse grow out area between the greenhouses where they lived. It wasn't even a public space.
Oh, it wasn't?
They just were there.
And so when did this public space?
Well, over time,
Yeah.
they started getting more trees, and the Ann Arbor Bonsai Society got involved, and
Yeah.
they donated some trees.
Okay.
So then they started displaying trees, generally in the conservatory.
Okay. Yeah.
Where you saw
Where I saw the first few tropicals.
Yeah, and so they would have tropicals, and they'd have a few temperate trees in there and move them in and out. And then about now, I guess about 14 years ago is when they built this facility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wanted his collection to go to one, or his trees to go to one collection,
one
one
collection.
place. And he went to school here,
Yeah.
and so this is where they will come. And so we've got, I get the number on the top of my head, maybe around 60
Yeah.
trees this size.
Yeah.
All this size. But he still has another between 40 and 50 shohin. He exhibited at the Nationals last year and won Best Shohin display.
Okay. Oh wow.
So that's the quality,
the caliber
of his,
his trees.
This white pine was probably like the big tree, one of the big trees in the collection prior to Mel's donation.
Wow. That's one of those trees when you see. I mean, even, I'm 2 feet away from it. I almost want to ask you if it's real. It's stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, the texture on the bark is unreal. The oh my gosh. And then, but it's so beautiful. Now, do you have? There's wire on there. You just have to look for it.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been wired, sure.
Well done and well placed. Yeah, that is phenomenal.
So they had, obviously, looking at this white pine, they had some nice trees prior to Mel's donation.
For sure.
Mel's donation really has elevated this collection. I think it can stand shoulder to shoulder with any collection in the United States, any public collection.
I would agree.
Yeah.
From what I've seen already this last 9 days. Look at this Chinese elm.
Yeah. From China.
Now that's a little bit, I haven't seen a lot of trees shaped that way. I mean, we've got a good cascade there with, wow, look at the movement on that trunk.
Yeah, yeah.
But still a very traditional pad structure, very traditional trimming and pruning on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, look at all that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite elms. It's
Yeah.
just so unusual.
Yeah,
So,
it is unusual.
Technically it's gnarly, the technical term,
That's
right?
the technical, our shop talk. It's gnarly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I love gnarly bark.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
I have a question about the juniper now. When was this pruned last? And has it been thinned? Will it have more foliage in the future? Or is this very common for a Rocky Mountain juniper? It just always is thinner than most trees.
It's been pruned about 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
and it will fill in.
It will
more,
fill
yeah.
in. Yeah, and I assumed it would.
Yeah.
And I don't have any trees like this, but
So
stunning shape. And
when all Mel's trees were in his backyard,
Yeah.
Suthin would come
yeah.
once or twice a year and work on the trees, and he'd done that for about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And so, there's a desire by Mel to continue that as long as we can, to have him come and come in.
So
So
you'll
he
have
was here about 2 weeks ago.
That's
and
fantastic.
He worked on that tree.
Oh my gosh. So his hands have touched a lot of trees.
They
and
have.
Everybody talks about his style and his just amazing ability to work a tree.
Yep,
So,
for sure, and fast, and as good as he is in bonsai, he's as good a person too.
Well, I sure love my larches, and I like tamarack forest, that's for sure.
Yep.
Don't have enough of those in my backyard.
I'm sorry, but that was a super familiar hit in this. I've heard that in a video before.
Yeah, once or twice, me and my larches. Yeah, I do have a love for the larch. Now, are there larch bogs here in Michigan, like in Minnesota?
There
I
are.
would imagine
Yep.
there are a few
Yep.
up. In
The further north you go, the more there are.
the more bogs you run into.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. From this region,
Yeah.
these trees,
Sure, sure.
not imported from Japan
From
or
Japan.
anything.
Yeah.
And Arthur Skolnick, he was big on the bonsai scene, especially in the Northeast, and that's where Mel got these trees from.
Okay.
Put them together. Yeah.
Wow. I want to talk about this tree right here for all the hobbyists in the world. Started as a hobbyist tree, get out.
Yeah, it was a hobbyist tree. He started about 80 years ago from a cutting. It's just amazing. The branch placement, the ramification, the nabari,
Yeah.
it's all just beautiful. And it was actually in the Nationals last year. And it won, I forget the title, but the best public
Best
public bonsai
owned or whatever
Yes,
bonsai.
yes.
Yeah. Oh my word. Yeah. How could it not win something? Oh my gosh. And in full bloom this spring must have been just stunning.
Oh yeah, it's just beautiful.
just
It's amazing.
Stunning.
Yep.
Do you document photographically these trees every year, every season? Do you do a lot of that, or is that?
We do.
Yeah.
We should do more. Like when every single tree goes into winter storage and comes out.
Yeah.
And that is the
we
goal.
all should do more.
But anytime we work on them, we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Often I'll say, man, did we get a picture of this?
Especially when it, oh my gosh, the specimen that it is.
Yeah. This was a collection tree, Matthaei collection tree that is not a Mel Goldstein tree.
Okay, we've got donor Bruce
Donated
Baker on this
Bruce
one.
Baker, and
Okay.
Bruce Baker just passed away. A nice, very nice taxus, starting to develop really nice now. And it was 1987 was collected from a yard here locally.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh, and look at
And
that.
developed since then.
That shari with a hole in the trunk there, and
Yeah.
oh, how unique is that?
Yeah.
Spectacular. A Chinese hackberry.
Yeah, so you know, in China they like trees that look like something. I've heard people say it looks like a cow laying down.
A cow laying down. Well, there you
Right.
go. You put it in my brain, so now I can see it.
That's actually what I saw first.
Did you really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
a cow laying down.
Yeah.
And one with nice antlers and foliage.
So,
Lovely.
yeah, right. Nice horns, right? And so this would be a highly prized tree in China.
In China? Yeah.
it's because of that.
Yeah, because it kind of can tell a story just by looking at it.
Yeah,
And- Or if you use your imagination. It's like us when we look at clouds and see stuff in the clouds. What
Yep.
can you see in this bonsai? Wow.
Boulevard cypress.
Wow.
We recently, well, this spring put it on this slab.
Oh, okay. It wasn't in a slab before?
It was in a container,
Oh, boy.
and I think it really elevated the aesthetics of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah, that's a stunning composition. I think that's beautiful.
I think the boulevard cypresses are just beautiful.
They are.
The mountain azalea, all 99% of the azaleas we have are, of course, are Satskis,
Satskis, yeah.
except for this one, mountain
is a mountain.
azalea. Deciduous,
Okay.
and it flowers earlier.
So, yeah, so bigger leaves and a little bit smaller flowers, though. And
Yeah, and deciduous, so it'll lose its leaves
its
in the
leaves.
winter, and it flowers earlier.
So, now,
Yeah.
was this likely the original, and this is roots that was pulled up over time on this design? Or was
Yeah,
it
very
always
well
that?
could be if it could. You imagine
Imagine
maybe
it-
the soil level
Yeah.
right in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then pulled up over time, and some of these roots get thicker.
Same with this exposed root.
Oh, my word. Yeah, that's a really exposed root tall.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is, because it defies, like, the logic of my brain saying, how is that tree being supported with all those little spaghetti, noodles?
Yeah.
But it's so many of them and a couple of clusters in there, and that
It's-
is a phenomenal exposed root.
It is surprisingly strong.
Yeah.
And that was my concern when it first came here, you know, and it gets windy.
Yeah.
If it starts twisting, but we haven't had a problem. We have another one in the back that is a similar,
Yeah.
and I have to give that a little support. But
Yeah.
this one's good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I have not seen a root exposed like that in this entire trip.
This gets really red flowers, and the petals of the flowers are thinner than the normal Satskis.
Oh, okay.
So it's
And is there any
pretty
reason
unique.
behind that?
Just the variety of it.
A variety of Satsky. So that's
Yes.
the main tree, but there's obviously a different what?
There's
Cultivars
tons
or
of different varieties and cultivars.
Variety,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a good, again, one of the original trees donated by Mr. Seaver, and that's how the collection started when he passed away.
Okay.
We received his trees. And this originally was a Christmas tree.
yeah.
And now,
So the trees
Now
in my
it's a
Christmas
bonsai.
farm, people. Trees in my Christmas tree farm. They have hope. I have some trees in the ground at a Christmas tree farm.
do you?
I
All right.
do.
Yeah, good.
So
Good.
I have some hope. I don't have some Ezos, but this one we have to talk about on camera
Yeah.
too, because this is just a Chinese elm, but it's not. It's a Chinese elm, period, right? I mean, why is it so small?
That's a good question.
Those leaves are
They
absolutely.
are, it's amazing.
It's stunning.
It is definitely stunning. So Mel told me that this is from China, this tree, and he went to a man that his specialty was stones,
Okay.
gongxi, and he was there at this man's house, and this was growing somewhere within his nursery.
Yeah.
And Mel asked about it. And the guy didn't want to sell it at first, but
Yeah.
they finally negotiated a price.
Oh, there you go.
And he said that the guy called it pearl.
Yeah.
So that's what we call it.
So Pearl.
it's-
So this is
yeah.
Pearl. Mr. Goldstein, he did well.
Oh yes, yeah, he
He
sure
was a
did.
good collector.
He had a great eye for material, and not only that, you know, he had these trees for many years.
Yeah.
And he took care of them.
He took care. He was
Yeah,
the curator. He really
yeah,
took
right.
care of them.
So he was an artist in his own right.
That is phenomenal. A Chinese banyan,
Yeah.
Ficus microcarpa.
Jerry Meislich.
It looks so proportional. I really love how it
Yeah.
Goes through the whole tree and doesn't, some people have joked with, in my trip, I've heard of the volcano look, where you have something that's super wide and just goes up like this, and it just doesn't, not as realistic when the leaves are all gone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But for how wide this base is, and then where the branches and I think it's very well balanced for having such a ginormous
I
base.
agree, yeah.
That is truly amazing.
So normally it's housed in the conservatory.
Yeah,
So
where the
we
other ones
bring
are
it
right
out-
now?
We bring it out for the summer, and we don't like totally defoliate it. We could,
Yeah.
but we remove the largest leaves every year.
Yeah, okay.
And slowly each year the leaves get smaller.
They keep getting smaller. I was going to say, so why on a refined tree like this would you defoliate at this stage of its life? It still can move.
To get that tighter, smaller leaf
smaller
size
leaves.
and more ramification.
Same thing as any time in the age.
I just
really.
got back from Indonesia where they had an exhibition.
Okay.
And they're all tropicals, and
Yeah.
but they have their growing season is 365 days a year, right? So
Well,
they do this process of defoliating, a number of times a year.
Yeah.
And it's so the ramification on those trees are so amazing.
Yeah, I
and
bet.
the leaf size it's very small, and it's amazing what they can do with a year-long growing season.
Yeah.
So of course we're in Michigan. Our growing season is like 3 days, right?
Well, Minnesota might be 3. You might have 5.
Right, maybe, yeah.
You might
right,
have 5.
Right. So we have to take advantage of the season.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Cork bark.
Yeah, another nice cork bark elm from Mel.
Again, of all the 50-year-old trees that Bill has in pots, they've been in pots his whole life, and they're going to the Chicago show in a little bit. A couple of them he had on his driveway on display. I'm like, those are going to. But he had this, and then in his collection, with all the traditional style he pretty much sticks to with most of his trees, very traditional in that sense. And then he had this, what looked almost like a cork bark barberry bush that he just, again, in someone's garden, somewhere on a journey, whatever. He says, like, can I have that tree?
Yeah, I look
I
forward
asked
to
him,
seeing it.
you're a traditional guy, but you still are open to all these other things you keep trying.
Yeah.
So he's still pushing the
Yeah,
envelope. and doing
I
different
think
things.
you have to.
Yeah,
Bonsai has to be dynamic.
What's your opinion on traditional versus a natural tree look? Do you have any strong opinions that way? There's a lot of back and forth on that. Some people think it's harder to create a real true traditional tree, and then maybe the more natural looking tree is a little bit easier, not as much work. Or do you prefer a style, or do you think there's a big difference between those two?
I like the natural
Okay.
the most.
Okay.
The most, right? More often.
Yeah.
I like to see the natural shapes.
Yeah.
But I also have that, again, I got that foot in
Foot-
the tradition, right? So I
Yeah.
appreciate what goes into creating those traditional trees.
Does
And
that
I have a
tradition-
great respect for that.
And does that traditional knowledge and that respect for that, but the knowledge of how to do that traditional style, does that totally enhance someone trying to make a natural tree?
I think so.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you got to start, your bonsai education has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So start in the beginning, right?
Right.
With
And there's
the-
some
with the
there's some
traditionals.
fundamentals that have been there forever.
Yep.
And we have to start there, but then we can kind of bend a few rules here, and
Yep.
maybe snap a couple there, but yeah, that
think
foundation is there.
I think it was Picasso that said, you have to learn the rules like a professional and break them like an artist.
I like that. Hey, look, another azalea.
Oh yeah, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, look at that pot.
Yeah, Sarah Rayner.
Is that a Rainer?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, Sarah, that's fantastic. Good for her.
yeah.
Yeah, she does some phenomenal stuff, and one of the nicest people on the planet when
Yep,
it comes
for
to
sure.
the bonsai people.
So
I've
humble.
met.
Yep.
And I'll never forget when I went down to get my first pot with her, like my first trip to see her one-on-one. And I'm looking at pots, and she could see the hesitation in me. She goes, walk away. Come back down another time. Well, fantastic. I drove 2,500 miles to see a Sarah Rayner pot in a beautiful tree.
Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, can I ask you a question?
Certainly. I don't know if
This
I'll
looks
answer it.
this
but
looks a little underpotted.
like the azaleas and their flowering, I monitor the health of the tree,
Yeah.
right? And so far, so good.
Yeah.
I have found, generally speaking, when
Okay.
I look, if I'm judging a show or
Yeah.
I'm evaluating my trees, deciduous trees, once they leaf out, they look a little underpotted. This one, to me, looks a little underpotted
As
too.
well, because it's such a billowing canopy.
Well, right, and when we do the repotting, they don't have any leaves, so you put them in, and that looks good.
That looks great.
right? And then they get larger as they leaf out.
Then it looks a little
looks
underpotted.
a little underpotted. Yeah.
That's an excellent point and something to think about when you're putting them in there.
You don't
yeah.
necessarily, you don't see that very often with conifers, right? Because when you
Sure.
repot them,
Well, foliage is
they're
year-round.
they're
They're
there.
evergreens.
Yeah, it's there.
Oh my gosh, what a great piece of advice and thing to think about when you put those in.
Yeah.
Hobbyists like us coming to a collection like this, you know, can kind of give you that sense of like, no way. Of course, we saw that one over there, but that, you know, started 80 years ago.
Yeah.
What are some golden tips on bonsai for people who are just really trying to get there and maybe have a tree that just can really, doesn't have to be in a show quality tree, you know, in their lifetime, but yeah, it's gonna look good. What would you?
Being overly simplified, you know, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
You just got to get out there and do it. I read a piece a guy wrote about playing tennis, and he says you can read every single book
Yeah.
you can get your hands on about tennis, but you really don't know how to do it until you do it.
Step on the court.
Yeah,
And
right.
You gotta do it.
Yeah.
You gotta get your feet wet.
Same with the bonsai, because you got to learn the species. What can you do with them, and what can't you do with
right.
them?
And you're not gonna know unless you start bending and snapping and
Well,
doing
right,
this
right.
and cutting and pruning and oops, the wrong time of year.
That and learning from people, you know, doing workshops and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and do it at whatever level you're pleased with. I mean, there's no reason, or we should continue to learn and get better. But
Yeah.
if you come home from a long day at work and you go out in the backyard with your trees, and they all look like Charlie Brown Christmas trees, but they bring you joy and happiness, then more power to you.
Absolutely.
You know, that's bonsai too.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Second.
That's it. That's bonsai. I
That's
noticed when
bonsai.
you walked in, I noticed your shirt. It has the bonsai is a noun, but bonsai is also a verb, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
the doing.
Doing.
You just got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's all, you know, watering your trees, everything. It's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
all the doing.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I can't
Yeah.
thank you much for your time. This has been phenomenal.
Oh,
I
it's my
appreciate
pleasure.
it. We're
Glad
gonna
you stopped
probably
by.
walk around and take some more pictures.
Absolutely.
But,
Yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
this time. I just, and I love that about the bonsai community. For me, just reaching out and making some cold calls and to come and talk to the people who do this.
Yeah.
And that just helps in my journey. I didn't bring a tree to show you, but I'm gonna go back and all the people I talk to.
Yeah.
It's just, and it gets me excited.
Yeah. You learn from everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. Matthaei has come to an end here. We just talked to Jack Sustic. What a great guy. Showed us all the trees. They've been so gracious here. And now we're going to head on out, and we're going to head a little bit west. I'm getting closer to home, but we still have Frederick Meyer to tackle. And thanks to my cameraman, this guy over here, Aaron, is helping me out today. So let's get in the car again, maybe grab some food, and we got to head west, all right? Let's go. Let's do this.